One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. We are moving right along with this coaching series that I just hope that you are enjoying every single one of these, because in listening back to these conversations, I can't help but smile. I smile because of the pride I feel in all the members of this community that came forward and said, hey, I have questions. I don't want to feel stuck on them. And just how smart everybody is about what you really want. I think at the end of the day, I look at content creators today compared to me whenever I was a baby content creator. I feel like y'all are leaps and bounds in knowing what you want, or at least having a better idea of it. I was not that skilled in the beginning. I did not know exactly what I wanted. And some of you come to the table with amazing questions. Everyone who did participate in the coaching calls, you all came to the table with incredible questions. And I just feel so lucky to have all of you in this community. It just, my heart is exploding. It's so much fun. But today's coaching call is with Haley Peel, and it was so much fun. It was so much fun. I don't think I can say that enough, how much I'm really enjoying these, but I don't even want to give away any spoilers. Let's jump into Haley's coaching call. Let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach you how to start, launch, and market your content with confidence. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of content creation, this is the show that will help be your time-saving shortcut. So let's get right to it, shall we? All right, Profit Podcast listeners, I'm so excited that we have another coaching call today, and it is with Haley. So welcome to the show, Haley.
Hey, Crystal. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Okay, so let's just start at the top. Tell us a little bit about the type of content that you're creating and the audience that you serve.
Yeah, so I have a podcast called the Empowered Adventurer Podcast. So it's about how outdoor challenges help us unleash our inner strength and live our best adventure inspired life. So it's a combination of having telling my own stories of adventure, interviewing people of their different adventures from ultra marathons, triathlons, bike packing across Nepal, various things like that. And then two kind of day to day tips, insights, wellness, how we can breathing techniques or just things that we can have experience inner peace in our day to day life. So actionable tips each week, as well as those longer, inspiring episodes too.
This sounds so fun. Like so much fun. I love that you're doing this. I haven't heard this be a topic or something that is so just centered around adventure. So it sounds like a lot of fun, and I'm glad that we're talking about this today. So, what is like the most important thing that we can talk about and cover today? I have a few things that we filled out in the form that you submitted, and it was audience clarification and ways to better market your content. So of those, is there anything that stands out specifically?
Yeah, I think, and I remember I said market content, and I could not remember the other one. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm getting more clear on who my ideal client is. So we can talk about that, but I think I would like to focus a little bit more on the marketing too. And if we have time, maybe the other, but marketing, yeah.
Yeah, go for it. So is there anything in particular that is like a big pain point that you have or something that you've been struggling with?
Well, I think part of it is just kind of I guess one question specifically. So it's growing the audience. So I've gotten better after delving into your podcast and information on that, like as far as like description and show notes and things of that nature, and learning how to write for SEO. So I'm saying more than like, hey, go listen to the episode. I'm working on trying to have a little bit more engaging content, and these are like some highlights and takeaways. So that's getting easier. I'm sure I could still improve on engaging that, but I guess specifically, one thing I'm curious about is like, is it one thing on my list is like creating a Facebook group to have more like engagement from, or like being able to interact with audience and that sort of thing. I haven't quite gotten there yet, trying to do all the things and prioritize. I feel like I'm at the point where I can start devoting time to it, but I'm, to be honest, like not a huge, like, I don't love being on social media all the time. Like I like being in the outdoors and nature and that sort of thing. So I'm trying to balance and I guess prioritize like what is the best like next step to continue to get that message out and grow the audience, if that makes sense.
Oh, yes, this totally makes sense. And this is actually something that we covered earlier in another coaching call where, somebody was saying they were just getting started online. So it wasn't so much that she wasn't active on social. She was like, I'm trying to really balance. There's so many things I could be doing. So what should I prioritize and focus on? And I think that the place that we like kind of have to hit pause and stop and look at everything is, where do you actually want to be? Because if you're thinking about creating a Facebook group, like, is that really the type of audience that you want to have and the type of engagement? Like, do you like Facebook? Like, if you hate Facebook, don't create a Facebook group. Like, that's going to be my suggestion to you. I have love-hate relationships with Facebook as well as other forms of social media. So I totally understand that. But I do think what I have found works really well in our Facebook group that we have is it was something that's taken a long time. Like, it's not, hey, I'm just going to open this group and people of my ideal customers, my ideal clients are just going to flood in. It's taken several years to even grow my group to the size that it is now and to have that engagement. So it is a long game process. But do you have an email list that you use in your business or with your content?
I do. So I started like back in 2017, I started a blog just for fun. And so I've been working on kind of converting that into a website. So I do have, it's a small list, but I do have an email list and freebies and things that I'm working on, trying to market that on social media to grow that list. So I do have that outlet.
Yeah. Well, I think that is, especially for what you do. I mean, I don't know. And I could be totally wrong in assuming what I think about when it comes to adventure, and you're right, people are doing things outside. And I know that, given everything that's going on in the world in the last few years, it's been really hard to do a lot of in-person things and to really schedule them and make sure that they're actually going to happen. But I would imagine that your community, your audience is just like you, where they're like, I would rather be outside doing stuff. Even if I'm listening to I'm listening to my podcast outside. And so I would try to really keep that in mind as you grow your audience, and maybe just an email list where you can keep up with people and engage with, like, hey, reply back to me and let me know what you thought about this episode, or let me know what you thought about what we should talk about in the future. I feel like that could be a better way to nurture and engage your people in a one-to-one setting, and then really get that down. And then, like, once you have this good rapport, maybe you grow your list a little bit more. Then if you still feel like, I want to have this Facebook group or another type of community, you could launch it to your email list. The people that are already engaged, the people that are already replying back to you and responding to you. I feel like that feels a little bit more doable than committing to, tomorrow I have to start a Facebook group and then I have to show up in there and I have to, like, the pressure feels a little bit different. Do you feel that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it feels, because I think that's why I've been dragging my feet for so long on the Facebook group. It's starting a business, it's just like, it's a lot to learn and try to, get everything going. So I'm trying to figure out like where to devote my energy. So that makes sense. I heard about Circle too. So I got on that for a little bit, but I know like the discoverability piece, from what I learned, that's why I was like, well, maybe I go back to Facebook from a discoverability piece. But then it was like, energetically, I don't know if that's where I want to devote my time just yet. So thank you for saying that. Yeah, that's super helpful.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And just, I keep going back to, just think about where your audience is. And maybe if you have, like, is there a specific way that people are finding you or your podcast right now? Like, are you on a different social media platform?
So I'm on Instagram, and I do have like my personal Facebook. So Instagram is where I'm posting consistently. So we're trying to posts and kind of different buckets that I have. And then what I'm starting to do, so like one of my freebies is mindful hiking. So kind of combining components of getting out in the outdoors and nature, but also mindfulness as well. And so I have envisioned my kind of like target audiences, like women who are interested in getting in the outdoors, but maybe have some experience, but they're beginners. Maybe they don't feel comfortable hiking by themselves, or they're not really sure where to start. So my kind of, I guess, one of my signature freebies is like the ultimate beginner's guide to mindful hiking. So it has, and you can take it if you just want to go out for nature walks, or if you want to go for like longer day hikes. So through social media, I've had a couple of ads through that standpoint. I'm working on getting like little face sheets that have just kind of a little bit of information about the podcast and coaching programs. And I'm gonna, deliver those around town, like local parks or yoga studios and things like that. So that's my current plan that I've laid out thus far.
Yes, I love this. And I don't know if you've really thought about, because when it comes to marketing, what I see that works just so well is guesting on other podcasts. And I imagine other outdoor type podcast, or even like you said, I love that you brought in the yoga and like mindfulness, because there's a lot of different ways. And I don't know in like what you teach and what you talk about has anything to do with children as well, like getting outdoors with your kids. But I imagine taking that angle, because there's a lot of podcasts centered around parenting. And even though that you wouldn't immediately go to that as your ideal audience, you have to think, well, if they're looking for ways to get outside with their kids this summer or try to do that, like here, and then you could offer your free resource, like here's, mindfulness, hacks that you have for hiking outside, or, there's just different ways that you can approach it to kind of zoom out from the most specific ideal customer or ideal audience member to who would really appreciate just getting outside in nature. And maybe they've never considered it before, because that's kind of how you can not only zoom out, but just approach your marketing in a creative new way. Like, what do you think about that?
I like that. I had not considered that before. I have a dog who I consider my kid, but I don't have any human children of my own. But I have plenty of friends that have younger kids, and they talk a lot about like anxiety or things that they have. And so this is definitely I'm very passionate about, for myself, like I was in a place where before I was only doing these like kind of extreme longer adventures. And then I went through some challenges in my life, just normal stuff, but it was just kind of a lot. And then I just got out in nature and doing like short little hikes, and just there's scientific research too that just shows like even being in nature can like lower your blood pressure and reduce stress and calm like the overthinking mind. So yeah, I love that idea. I had not considered that, but that's a great idea. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And that is actually, I know that there are a lot of Facebook groups that, offer different kinds of Facebook lives or live streams. I mean, especially when you kind of tap into the world of parenting. And I say that because I'm a mom of 3 boys who I'm like, please just go outside and just get out of my hair for like 2 seconds so I can think, So it's definitely something I would find really helpful as we come up. I know we're still at the beginning of the year when we're recording this, but I'm going to be looking for ideas to get them outside, get off their tablets, get off their technology, and get back out into nature, and having something that's really helpful. Like, here's how to explore your local area, or here's, what to look for, things to do. Like, and maybe it's a PDF, maybe it's a podcast episode, maybe it's an interview that you offer to another podcast as a guest, but just kind of thinking outside of the box than just the adventure, because the adventure niche feels real small compared to it being more of well-being, even though if that's how you market it, that's totally fine. But when you kind of zoom out a little bit and think of it as marketing towards people that want to have, like you said, lower their blood pressure, have a connection with nature, like just have a feeling like, I'm just going to be completely like goofy for a second. It makes me feel alive. Like, I realize if I've been inside my house all day and I'm working, I'm podcasting, I'm creating, and I haven't gone outside. Like, what is wrong with me? If I go outside and I just take a deep breath, it makes me feel better. It really does. So I don't know if that helps or not, if I just went down my own little rabbit hole, but
yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, that is super helpful, because that's why I do it too. Is like I feel alive and I feel more grounded and connected and free too. Just like all the stuff that I tend to worry about just kind of just goes away, and then I can kind of re-enter the world and be able to be more, I guess, calm and grounded when I'm like moving forward. Things don't seem to bother me as much, and so I feel like, yeah, I just like kind of want to share that message too, because like kind of it stretches our brain, and like when we're able to put ourselves in like challenging, whatever that challenge looks like, different situations in the outdoors, like when it builds new neural pathways that when we come back, like things that a lot of times traffic or things that can stress us out, it's we're able to meet those challenges with more calm and groundedness, and not kind of necessarily freak out, as much as maybe we would have otherwise. So yeah, thank you.
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
Yes, you're so welcome. What other questions did you have? So I see that one of your top goals for this year is funnels for your coaching program and having an
Mhm.
engaged audience. So is there anything that kind of stands out in your mind about that question?
Yeah. So I think I've like been working on the podcast since last August. So kind of there's a big learning curve, just kind of figuring out the tools and the content and kind of getting organized from that standpoint. And so ideally, like the podcast would be a funnel. And then I'm trying to pick like another funnel as well. And I like in-person things. So I'm local. I'm in Nashville, so I'm like locally trying out different networking groups. Um, there's one that's new that I'm working potentially gonna join and that sort of thing. So I guess I'm open to other suggestions though. I'm not like necessarily sold. I mean, definitely I would like the podcast portion of it. So working on kind of growing that to have that be like a consistent funnel for my coaching programs. It's not there yet, but I'd like to get to that point. But I'm open to other, I guess, thoughts or suggestions around that because that is an area where I'm still very green and it's not clicking just yet.
Yes, yes. Well, I love what you talk about. So tell me a little bit more about like your coaching programs. Like what is the actual thing that you're going to be offering as your product or your program?
Yeah, so I have a 90-day unleash your inner strength. So I work with high achieving women who struggle either anxiety, self doubt, overwhelm, and they're searching for inner peace, empowered confidence, and just tools, stress management tools, but tools to live their best adventure inspired life. So someone who is interested in likes being in nature and that sort of thing. And then I take them through like my 7-step signature system. So the first step is like really defining your why and getting clear on why you're wanting to do this work. Creating your spiritual gym. So this is a term from Jen Sincero, but it's like kind of like a morning routine or just things that you can do 15, 20 minutes every day to help anchor your why in there. Back to wellness basics. So a lot of things that maybe we take for granted, just kind of taking a look at your wellness, sleep habits, eating habits, that sort of thing. Energy inventory. So food and activities that give and take away our energy. Mindful hiking is also a piece of it. So if somebody's local, then that part of that package would be going on mindful hikes with me. Kind of learning about that process, movement in general, and then de-stress toolbox. So throughout the throughout the 90 days, having just learning different tools to shift from a stress state to a more calm, grounded state.
This is so awesome. Yes, this is so good. And like while you're talking, I'm imagining a few different approaches that you can take. So while you were talking, what I was thinking about is kind of a multifaceted approach that you can take to help market and grow your audience. I go back to guesting on other people's podcasts because everything that you just said. So you have the parenting angle if you wanted to say, hey, here's a way for you to get out with your children this summer. But now that you just said everything about your coaching program, I feel like you'd be really aligned with the I don't really know like which category you would lump this in, but it's like female entrepreneurs, women business owners, like women CEOs. And there are a lot of podcasts about that. Like you could go back to episodes of this podcast and listen to several people that they talk about the mindset, they talk about the confidence, overcoming overwhelm, and a lot of different facets of that. And if you can guest on their show by offering, hey, do you know I offer, ways that you can get out in nature or get in touch with more of your physical well-being, and that helps other aspects of your life become better, more positive, less overwhelming. And in doing that, you're doing two things. You're going to raise awareness, or actually you're doing three things. You're going to raise awareness of your brand and what you do. You're also going to network with other people that could potentially introduce you to other podcast hosts or other people, and you would just get in front of their audience. but you would also be hopefully gaining a listener at the same time. Because what we have seen in the podcast space when it comes to marketing is it's a lot easier to convert one podcast listener to listen to another show than it is to talk to someone on Instagram and convince them that they should be a podcast listener if they're not already doing so. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
So I guess, so part of my, I did a podcast course last fall. And so they were all new podcasts. So I have guested on a couple. I don't know that any of them have released just yet because they're starting their shows. And I haven't, so I'm part of your Facebook group, and that's an area that I can kind of start making connections to guests. Do you think that's the best place to start, is like your Facebook group and making connections and like, hey, this is what I have to offer? Or do you have any other suggestions on podcast guesting as far as like how to make those connections?
Yes, this is so great. And it can be a little overwhelming, I'm not going to lie, because I'm in the process. Like, this was my big goal for 2022. I'm like, I'm going to guest on all these shows. And then I created this spreadsheet of all these potential shows I could be on. And I hit this like pause button and immediately was like, this is going to be a lot of work. So just take a deep breath and know that it is a long game. And you're right. You could guest on a show and it may not air for 6 months. Like, that's just kind of the name of the game. You have no control over when a guest puts out your episode. However, when you do start guesting on other shows and getting them out there, it builds your authority. So it kind of dominoes where I could say, oh, Haley was on the Profit Podcast. She's a legit person. She knows how to talk in complete sentences. And you could send someone a clip of you being on a show to prove, if you will, like I'm saying that in quotes, like prove that you are a great podcast guest. So that's why it's really important. But back to your question of how to really get started. There's a few episodes of the podcast that you can listen to, but I would also recommend looking at maybe some of the podcasts that you love to listen to that are about adventures or being outside, or, maybe even kind of dabbling into the female empowerment, female entrepreneur, that kind of genre, just to see, well, would I be a good fit for this show? And just start listening, consuming a whole bunch of variety of podcasts to see if you could offer something, and then reaching out. Like, it's really just a numbers game. Even this month, I think I've reached out to 3 or 4 podcasts. I haven't heard anything back. Yet. And so it's a process of just following up and trying to be there. There are services that you can hire that do this. But from my perspective as a host, it really does mean a lot whenever it comes from the actual person, because it shows that personal touch. So I don't know if that helps or not, but that's kind of my strategy of how I'm doing this.
Yeah, that is super helpful. Yeah, definitely. I love that. Yeah. And I love, because really and maybe that's something I can kind of work on as far as like describing my show, because it is about like female empowerment, like through the lens of outdoor adventure and nature and that sort of thing. So yeah, this is like super helpful. So thank you.
Yes, you're so welcome. Is there any other questions that you have before we go?
I have one quick question, and this is probably like in my detail perfectionism mindset. So just bear with me here. But so I changed my name, or changed the name of the podcast about 10 or so episodes in. And then I switched over to Buzzsprout. Like, I was on Anchor, and then after listening to you, I switched over to Buzzsprout and love it. And so I am now familiar with like dynamic content. So I'm curious, like, if I should go back and I'm not necessarily as much tied to like the name, and because the intro is pretty much the same, it's just a little bit different. But like, as I'm making like my discovery call offers or opt-in offers, like I have, before I switched over to Buzzsprout, like embedded them within the episodes of Anchor. So like, I'm wondering if I should edit that out to where like I can go back in, and when I do the dynamic content, like apply them to all episodes. Does that make sense what I'm asking? Like when I have something to offer?
Yeah. So,
or should I just not worry about it?
I would just not worry about it. And the reason why is because first and foremost, I have this, it's my personal example. I didn't go back and re-edit anything. I didn't change anything from when I rebranded. The first, I think it's like 40 something episodes of my podcast. It says this is the Rookie Life podcast. It has all this different music. Like it's very different than what the Profit podcast is. But here I am 4 years later, no one cares. So it's,
Okay.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is a total personal preference. You can go back and change it, but I think that it's better to focus on what you're doing in the future and going forward than worrying about one person one time saying, oh my gosh, I cannot believe she had this other name. We don't want those people anyway. Those people are going to be the ones that hang with you and because they're there for you. They don't like, I've actually listened to a show that rebranded and I didn't care. I didn't care that they changed because I wanted the content more so than I cared about the branding or the name changing. This is kind of where we all get stuck though in our own head. And I did the same thing and I was like, should I do this? Should I do that? And at the end of the day, I was like, I'm just going to keep going forward and just told myself I'm going to get better in the future and I'm going to change things. And that's what happened for me. So that's my own personal journey.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That takes a lot of pressure off because it's like, I don't have time. I don't want to go back and do all that if I don't have to.
Yes.
So thank you. Yeah. That releases pressure.
Yes, you're so welcome. And what I would do is I would use your dynamic content to talk about your free resource. Or if you do end up launching a Facebook group, then that's where you can announce it. Be like, hey, we're building a brand new community on Facebook or Circle or wherever you decide to launch it, and tell people that way. And that's how I really love when people can use the dynamic content for stuff that's timely and it's going to be applied to all of your episodes. So no matter when someone finds your content, or, which episode they're on, they would still hear that dynamic insertion that you put there.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Love Buzzsprout. So that was definitely, I switched over after starting to listen and binge listen to all of your shows. So thank you. It's way better than before. So.
Well, you're so welcome. Haley, tell everybody where they can connect with you and listen to your show and just keep up with all the fun things that you're doing.
Yeah. So my show is on Apple and Spotify, and it's called the Empowered Adventurer Podcast. I also have a website called haleyscomments.com, and I'm on Instagram, Haley's Comments 310. So yeah, any of those places, I would love to hear from anybody.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Crystal. I really enjoyed it. This was very helpful.
What's really fun about these coaching calls and sharing them here with you on the podcast is we actually recorded these in February of 2022. But so many of the things that people had questions on, they're timeless. They're timeless in the sense that every content creator has to make a lot of these decisions at some point. So you could be listening to it and you're like, oh my gosh, I had that exact question just yesterday. Or maybe you're going through the same things that Haley is going through right now and you're trying to navigate it and you're like, oh my gosh, this just helped me see everything in a different perspective. But I think it's just so interesting how we can create content and the relevancy of people's stories and the conversation that we had, like it doesn't go away. Yes, I could understand if you were creating about topics that were very specific to technology and apps change and Facebook changes and Instagram changes and social media and people's habits, like all those things, like that would be very different. But I see parallels in the questions that we get on these coaching calls and how it's so similar to what I faced in the beginning and what I face today several years in. So I just wanted to throw that in the ring of these coaching calls have really helped me to see the power of evergreen. If somebody listens to this 5 years from now, yeah, the technology may be slightly different and hopefully podcasting will be even a better experience. I don't know. I have no crystal ball, no pun intended, on what's going to happen with podcasting and content creation in the future. But I hope that everything that we're doing today is still relevant and timeless because it's sharing people's stories. It's sharing people's experiences. I feel like I got a little philosophical there today, but it's just what was on my heart and what I wanted to share with you. But please go check out Haley and all the amazing things that she's doing. Go to the show notes, crystalprofit.com/episode 355 to learn more about her. But that's all I have for you today. So as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Crystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.